try to do it that way. So then you just keep on changing the mediums to then express yourself.
Storytelling is big.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like verbal storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, like all of us know and anyone knows, it's like, I can light and shoot a great movie, but unless the story and content is great, no one really gives a shit about it. It's just as simple as that. So, hats off to writers and Lance and guys, you know, and Ken and others, and Joe. I mean, writing is a true, that's where it's got to start from. You can only do so much to embellish and to make a great story out of it unless you have the guts of it. Yeah.
So we're going to move on, but let me just give you a little bit of me, a resource. I gave a little bit before, but now hearing all this incredible stuff, I was thinking about my distilled resources. One of my distilled resources is my mother was mentally ill. When I was little, I grew up with a mentally ill mother who would put her head in the oven, and I would have to rescue her at a very young age, age 6 and on. I had to cook dinner for my little brother, who's now a big movie star, because there was nobody there to cook. My father was a professor, he wasn't at home. So I draw a lot from the sense of healing and survival, and also escape. When I was little, I would do seances where I'd rig everything, and kids in the block would charge a quarter, and I would have my brother hide in a closet. And I would really, I had little, like, you know, I could make the table elevate by putting spoons here like that, and, you know, the kids living in the very last minute, my brother would come out and scare me. So I was a little bit escape, but also trying to make it all, you know, 25 cents. I was being myself. My dad always said everything I do is my seance now. Cooking, alchemy, all of that. But it all comes from having a sick mother, wanting her to be well. I spent 5 years of my life getting her out of the backwoods. It was painful, but I thought it had to be done. Nobody else would do it. So I draw from that strength, and I draw from the need to heal, which is another reason why PA exists, because I saw it heal somebody. And I'm sure all of you heard that story about the construction worker, Doug Arney, who responded to one of my things on the internet, and he won, his poem won, because I wasn't interested in screenplays. I was interested in ideas, dreams, and stories. And what he did was send this poem about Charlie Chaplin, and he got picked, not by me, but by the person judging the various stories. And he was a person, when I called him, he said he couldn't come. I said, well, why did you submit? He said, well, I like it. But it turns out that he was a construction worker that fell off a building, held an electrical cable, his eyes popped out 3 inches, and he essentially was rewired and lived in his basement, like a Frankenstein. Big man, his family was scared of him, he was scared of people, he would see things not well. And I convinced him to come out to New Mexico. I said, look, you know, come on out, because I can't deal with people. People are scared of me. I said, well, just come on out, maybe I can talk to somebody. If it's really bad, just split, you know, it's okay. I'm going to work with you, it's your story. He came out and he was messed up, heavily medicated, and in the process of having him tell his story, he got comfortable with people. He found himself. And essentially at the end of the process, he was up on a stage talking about it. I said, wow, creativity healed this guy. So that kind of idea is something I'm very proud of. I do a lot of that. But if you go back to the main resource, having a sick mother is a lot of what I draw from. Okay, we're going to go to score. And I'm going to make this a little simpler for all of you, because we have many, you know, similar things here. We don't have composer, we don't have this and that. A score, let's go with the idea of what is the style. So that if you have a style of what you do, how can I do something in your style? And I can say, oh, Christopher, you just made a film like what Christos would do. And I said, oh, it's an homage. All right. It's, you know, De Palma, who used to be great, and his style was heavy use of Steadicam. You know, heavy use. Always having the camera moving. Snake Eyes. You know, the beginning of it is a huge Steadicam shot. Well, he obviously drew that from Orson Welles, but he was one of the best at doing Steadicam stuff. So if I was going to do something in the style of De Palma, I would use a lot of Steadicam, smart, you know, hate to say the word, sexy Steadicam moves. So let's go down, you know, with this idea. We talk about the score in the sense of your style and how a student, if was asked to do a small film in your style, how would you explain that? So let's, I'm going to start with Christos here.
Well, since I do work a camera, and you know, I think there's a certain style to what I do when people see my stuff. I mean, I think a lot of what is, I really am passionate about what I do, and I think it translates into the frame, no matter if I'm shooting a music video, a documentary, or a feature film. You can, there's a certain caring that's involved in the lensing of it. You know, it's you're bringing the viewer in, and I don't go in the style of like a Tony Scott, where you're almost nauseated by the camera work, or you're taken out of the storytelling because you're saying, oh wow, this cameraman decided to get a little edge on this. You want to bring people in and make them forget about that they're watching a movie, or watching a video, or whatever it may be, and concentrate on the subject and the story that's being told. I mean, to me, moving cameras are a huge part of it. You know, you could go along the way of like the Ozu frame of classic traditional composition. Great Japanese director that used composition and not much camera movement to tell a story. It'd be very wide, it'd be very close, but it'd be very stoic in its framing. Then you talk about Steadicam, you know, the great, you know, Stanley Kubrick was probably the finest in the invention of Steadicam, and drone, and you know.
What's kind of, you know, actually his thing before Steadicam, which is more of a natural, was the zoom. I was doing a film called G-Men from Hell, and it was a night where I had 6 different DPs, a lot of striking going on. Was my problem. It's an interesting little movie. But this guy named Gene Lent came on, who was a non-union DP, and I said, I want, you know, we couldn't afford a Steadicam, but I said, you know, let's do the traditional dolly, because you don't have time to do that. And I hate zooms. You know, I'm just not a zoom guy. And, you know, I think of Turkish films, that, you know, whoop, 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 that kind of stuff. It's funny, but, you know, I'm just not a zoom guy. I'm a Jim guy. I love the Jim. But he said, well, do you like Stanley Kubrick? I said, of course I like Stanley Kubrick. Zoom master. And he did the whole shot with the zoom. And I said, whoa. So I just wanted to say that.
And there's a lot, I mean, it's like being in charge of your craft. I mean, Sven Nykvist is one of the finest cinematographers of all time. I mean, he was in my Bergen's DP, I mean, you know, Fanny Alexander. I mean, great films. And he used the zoom, just to talk about that, but like, you use it in a way that they were limited by the equipment they had at the time, yet they wanted to really get into the scene. So he was so subtle with his movements that you forgot how it got there, but you realize you're this much closer. And it wasn't, you know, they didn't have a Steadicam or even a dolly in some of these things, but it is just using the whatever you have, whether it's a wheelchair, because that's the only way you have a dolly because you can't afford one, to, you know, when we were kids using a skateboard, being chased behind a bike.
Right.
I mean, whatever it may be, but just hold it steady and try to, you know, try to forget the limitations of the equipment that you have and go for the end product of what you want to get out of it.
I think if I was going to do a film in your style, just hearing this, and unfortunately I haven't seen one of your movies, but I would love to, I think simplicity and clarity. You know, less is more. Though you got to be careful with that, because there's, I mean, I don't believe in boring, but there is such a thing as boring audience. And some dogma films do that, the less is more. So you do have to know your palette. But some people like the painter likes to throw their paint, you know, make it thick, which I don't like, but it's a legitimate form of painting. Some people like it simple and, you know, more pure. And it sounds like you draw from that.